Believe it or not, but there's actually a lost Star Wars movie. I've had this on my mind for a long time, but I haven't shared it with anyone. But I think it's time someone finally knows the truth about this movie. The movie was called Anakin's Hell. And after the first series, everyone loved Star Wars. George Lucas had a great time. However, he wanted to make a more serious film. Star Wars was seen as PG, and even though it had some violent parts in it, it was seen by a lot of kids and adults alike. George Lucas wanted to prove he can make an adult film, a dark film. So he needed someone for the role. And originally, Neil Patrick Harris was going to play Anakin. He too wanted to prove he can play a darker role. And that movie was going to be about Anakin going to hell and being punished before he can repent and truly find peace with himself. Hell was never established in the Star Wars universe. However, since Anakin turning good was a big plot point in George Lucas's films, and Christianity was wide around the world, he thought he could build the lore better and attract more viewers with the idea of hell and a dark story. So, as the production began, I wasn't anything special. All I did was record the camera. I was a cameraman for the actors. The job really wasn't that different from any other job I did in Hollywood, at least at the start. As we started recording, George Lucas wanted everything to be perfect. He was meticulous about it. People said he was a nice guy, but for this one, he was always angry and aggravated, like he wanted things to get done, and if they weren't done, he would fire you on the spot. As I started recording, the first scene would be Neil Patrick Harris as Anakin. As he was in hell, everyone there would look at him. It was everyone Darth Vader killed. As they all looked at him and stared deep into his soul, suddenly he would light on fire as he would scream in pain, and they would say, "This is what you deserve, this is what you deserve, this is what you deserve, you're a failure," as then they disappeared. As Anakin would be on fire in the lava banks, he would suddenly be all burnt up and start to crawl up a wall. This scene was actually used for Revenge of the Sith. However, this was not its original purpose. In this movie, there was no Obi-Wan. There was simply Anakin on fire, crawling again and again and again. There was a giant mountain as he crawled. He would crawl, he would hear voices, yelling, screaming, crying. And that's all we filmed for the first day. After that, I would begin to have nightmares. It seemed so realistic, all the special effects. Just having him burn and crawl up a mountain for all eternity, barely able to get by with those stubs he has left for arms. It left something in me, left some sort of impact. And it did everyone else. The next day, Neil Patrick Harris' eye twitched. He didn't look okay, he looked insane. It seems like playing Anakin was doing things to him. Things he did not want to mention, but he kept going. I don't know why, I didn't talk to him much, but all I had to guess was, he was known for How I Met Your Mother in the future. And this back then was going to be a big role for him. Star Wars has been gone for quite a while, years in fact. It's been so long that the first 2 episodes of How I Met Your Mother was out. Neil Patrick Harrison was just known for a silly role, and he wanted to be more than that, so he was determined, but he didn't look right. As the next scene would be Anakin. As he was crawling up the mountain on fire, suddenly he would appear normal, as his mom looked at him. This movie was going to touch on his backstory and show everything about him. As his mom looked, she hugged him and said she loved him. And he started to play and actually have a good time. Of course, that didn't last long in hell, as eventually a lightsaber would appear in Anakin's hands, as he would start to stab his mom out of control, as his mom began to cry and fell on the floor, as she yelled, "Why, Anakin, why? Why? First you couldn't save me, now you kill me?" As he kept stabbing her again and again and again. His eyes was full of tears. It was obvious he wasn't doing this on purpose. Some force made him do it, as he killed her. As Anakin's mom laid lifeless on the floor, Anakin fell down to tears, as suddenly a chain would appear on his neck and would be pulled by a giant bug. "You belong to me now." As suddenly he would start to get whipped, doing hard labor, as it revealed his life was slavery, as he was worked to the bone, whipped again and again, his back full of lashes, his back bleeding. It seemed like it was getting pretty brutal. As I was recording, I started to feel something. My back started to hurt like it was being whipped. I was confused. But you know how when you see someone in pain and you feel it? I just assumed it was like that. However, I couldn't be more wrong. It started to get more and more intense. As the shoot ended, I went back to my trailer. As I took off my shirt, and I saw it. I saw deep whip marks all across my back. The pain, it was so deep, I could feel it all the way through my body. This shouldn't be possible. I didn't know how it was possible. This movie, it was affecting me. I decided to ignore it. I needed the money. I wasn't doing too hot. And recording a big film like this could really help out. So all I could do was power through it. Next day, as George Lucas came in, he would look at all of us and begin to yell at us, saying, "Don't tell anyone about this movie. We can't let anything be leaked, and you can't tell anyone you're working on it. Just simply say you're working on a movie in Hollywood. I'm serious, guys." As he started to yell at us, berate us, just seemed completely unlike him. George Lucas was being known as a nice guy, as a guy who founded Star Wars, and as a guy who cared about others. Now, whether that was true or not, I never really knew. It could have just been PR, but even if it wasn't, he wasn't the type of guy just to go off the hand like this, just yell at us. And he says, "Do not call an ambulance," for Neil Patrick Harrison. He wanted this role, he'll earn it. As then he walked away. An ambulance, that was the part that confused me the most. But as he came in to shoot that night, his skin was pale, almost like Palpatine himself, as he looked like he hadn't slept in days. As he started playing the role again, Anakin would be tortured once more, this time by Obi-Wan, as Obi-Wan looked at him and called him a failure of a student, and it's his fault all the Jedi died, and you're nothing but a disappointment. Anakin would look up at Obi-Wan's face and simply say, "I'm sorry." Obi-Wan would say, "Sorry is not good enough," as he would chop off his limbs with a lightsaber and threw him into the lava bank, as Anakin burned to death, and Obi-Wan would do this again and again, repeatedly. But each time he did it, Anakin would hear different voices. He would hear Yoda calling him a failure. He would hear his son. He would hear voice after voice after voice, as this scene went on for minutes on end. Eventually, though, Neil Patrick Harrison would pass out completely as he fell to the floor and began to pant. It looked like he was having some sort of seizure, but as we grabbed him, we started to see burn marks across his skin, the same type that Anakin felt. We were going to bring him to an ambulance, but George Lucas showed up and yelled at us. He started to curse at us, saying, "Don't you effing bring an ambulance here." As then he took him away. The next day, Neil Patrick Harrison didn't show up for shooting, and no one was really surprised. I wouldn't show up for shooting after that either. To be honest with you, I really didn't want to show up. I just needed the money. However, George Lucas needed a star for this film, and he wasn't going to let it go to waste, so he simply chose another person. This person wasn't even an actor. This person simply works with lights. However, this person would have nightmares and break down, just like Neil Patrick Harrison did. George Lucas chose a person and another and another and another, but they all broke down. Eventually, he wasted so much money into this film, he started to go bankrupt. So, he let Disney buy out George Lucas Films, and the movie was scrapped. Images of it were used for Revenge of the Sith and other movies, but the more darker parts were cut out entirely. And even though this movie ended, it still haunts my dreams. Every once in a while I'll have a dream about this movie, and I'll feel a dark pain in my chest, and I'll feel like I'm on fire for no reason. I don't know why. I guess sometimes fiction feels real. Sometimes, something that isn't real can become real. Sometimes, something you love can turn into something you hate.